This is BBC News. I'm Samantha Simmons. Our top stories. Rescuers are still looking for survivors in the mud after a dam collapsed in Brazil. Almost 350 are still missing. Britain, France, Spain and Germany have all joined the US in recognising Juan Guaido as the legitimate leader of Venezuela as he rallies his supporters onto the streets. A climb down for now by President Trump. He ends the longest government shutdown in US history despite not getting money for his border wall. To separate or not to separate, these Senegalese twins face an uncertain future here in the UK. Hello and welcome to BBC World News. At least 345 people are still missing after a mining dam collapsed in Brazil. So far, 9 people have been confirmed dead, but authorities say they don't expect to find any more survivors. The dam breach in Minas Gerais in the southeast of the country unleashed a torrent of sludge that buried a cafeteria where workers were having lunch. Catherine Stancheshin reports.
A catastrophe on a previously unimaginable scale for this corner of southeastern Brazil. This is the aftermath of a dam collapse at an iron ore mine at the state of Minas Gerais. 1 million tons of sludge cascading onto the local landscape, destroying houses, engulfing farmland. There were some lucky ones. This woman dramatically rescued from thick, waist-high mud after being almost completely buried. Hundreds are still missing, mainly mine workers who had been eating lunch at the dam's cafeteria when it burst, sending torrents of mud throughout the complex. Relatives are desperate for news.
Where are our parents, the fathers and mothers who went to work earlier today? No one has told us anything. Where's my dad? Where is my dad?
Rescue teams are using earth-moving machinery at the site near the town of Brumadinho, where more than 1,000 people have been evacuated from their homes. The dam is owned by Brazil's largest mining company, Vale, which says only around a third of the workforce has been accounted for.
Senhores, eu não tenho palavras para descrever.
I have no words to describe my grief, my great sadness, my disappointment with what has just happened. It is something beyond and above anything I could have imagined.
Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro will visit the area later today. It's still not clear what caused this devastation, but it's thought there's now little chance of finding survivors. Catherine Stancheshin, BBC News.
Well, the BBC's Julia Carneiro is near the dam in Brumadinho and has the latest on the search operation.
They restarted very early this morning with helicopters flying over the area and firefighters trying to find victims and also looking for areas where they have information where workers of the mine were and perhaps people could be stranded. There's hope in the city that perhaps there are areas, sort of islets of areas where people were stranded, didn't make it out and therefore are still unaccounted for. However, the firefighters have been saying that it's a very difficult operation because they have to reach areas on foot. However, that is very hard because of the amount of sludge that's still very soft, very thick. So it's challenging to approach these areas. They're doing so with dogs sniffing for signs of life, but the governor of the state of Minas Gerais, where I'm talking to you from, has said he sadly believes that at this stage it will be more likely to retrieve bodies than to find living people, victims of this tragedy, Samantha.
Julia, we're looking at pictures of a few people who have amazingly been rescued, and you can see just the scale of the devastation over a widespread area. What are the owners of the dam and the iron ore mine saying about the possible cause of this collapse?
Yes, Vale, the mining giant that owns the mine here in Brumadinho, the president of the CEO, Fabio Schwartzman, said the causes were still unclear, and he actually tried to give assurances that in recent days, in the past, in few months, they had received reports attesting and improving the stability of this mine. However, there is questioning about how this happened. There's lots of questioning about a meeting that happened here in Brazil in December to extend the license that allowed this mine to operate. There seemed to have been some controversy in this meeting with some members with an environmental protection view, saying that there was risk here in the city of Brumadinho, but that was a minority view. It didn't go forward. So there's lots of questioning about how this was allowed to happen, especially after the huge dam collapse that we had here in the same state of Minas Gerais just over 3 years ago in Mariana, killing 13 people and causing huge environmental impact. And the impact of the environment, you can already have a sign of here in the background. This is the Paraupeba River, the main river that crosses the city of Brumadinho, and it's been tinted by the colors of iron ore extraction. Lots of people here in the city are gathering to see the impact, and the city is just in awe and very anxious to have news of the victims that are still unaccounted for.
Julia Carnero talking to me a little earlier. Britain has joined Spain, Germany and France on the list of countries agreeing to recognise opposition leader Juan Guaido as the Venezuelan interim president. The United States has already backed Mr. Guaido over the incumbent Nicolas Maduro. Right now, the UN Security Council is holding an emergency session to discuss the Venezuelan crisis. Russia tried to stop the meeting, though only 4 of the 15 council members voted with them. When the meeting commenced, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the council now is the time for countries to pick a side.
This meeting is long overdue, and you all know why it's overdue. Take Carlos Aquino, a 37-year-old construction worker, weeping over the tiny coffin of his deceased infant son who had died of starvation. Such scenes of misery are now the norm in Nicolas Maduro's Venezuela, where millions of children are suffering from malnutrition and starvation, thanks to a socialist experiment that caused the economy to collapse.
Well, for more on the situation in Venezuela, the BBC's Guillermo Olmo reports from Caracas.
Juan Guaido, the young opposition leader who keeps defying Nicolás Maduro. In Caracas city center, he addresses his supporters again, acting as if Maduro's time is over. Guaido says the country is now on track for a transitional period, ending in fresh elections.
The time has come to stand on the side of the Constitution. The time has come to respect the people of Venezuela.
Once again, he has declared himself the legitimate president of the country, with renewed support from the United States. President Nicolás Maduro says Guaido's bid is just a new attempt of coup d'etat orchestrated by the United States. But the US is not alone. Other countries have echoed calls for an early election. The latest is Spain. Refusing to bow to pressure, Maduro says he will resist any external push.
They want to sell the image that we're anti-American. I am not anti-American. I am anti-imperialist, which is different.
As the political unrest hits a deadlock, the economy continues to fall, adding to the suffering of the Venezuelan people.
This has never happened before in Venezuela. The president is bringing down the country. Things have never been so bad.
More than 2 million people have already left the country, in fear the current turmoil might aggravate neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil. As the political dueling continues, with no solution in sight, it appears the Venezuelan drama is far from over. Guillermo Olmo, BBC News.
And there's plenty more on the crisis in Venezuela on our website, including an in-depth look at who Juan Guaido, the acting president, is. Just head to our website at bbc.com/news. And let's take a look at some of the day's other stories. The main opposition party in Nigeria has paused its presidential election campaign for 72 hours in protest at the suspension of the country's Chief Justice. Walter Onnoghen had been asked to appear before a tribunal over allegations of breaching asset declaration rules. He has not responded to the charges, and his lawyers say the tribunal does not have the authority to try him. Officials in Italy say the number of people killed when a light aircraft and a helicopter collided in the Italian Alps on Friday has now risen to 7. The bodies of 2 missing people were found in the scattered wreckage. A Frenchman and a Swiss woman are in hospital in the Italian resort of Aosta with serious injuries. An outbreak of measles in the US state of Washington has led the governor to declare a state of emergency. More than 24 people, most of them children, have recently contracted the highly contagious viral disease. The US was declared free of measles nearly 20 years ago. Its return is being linked to parents who don't allow their children to be vaccinated. The longest government shutdown in US history has come to an end, at least for now. President Trump signed a bipartisan bill to fund the government for 3 weeks, saying he wasn't making concessions. But it's a climb down for the president, who said he would not sign any legislation unless he got funding for his proposed border wall with Mexico. 800,000 federal workers went without pay during the shutdown. They will finally be getting their salaries, but some have concerns over how soon they will receive their back pay. Michelle Bell is a federal worker from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hard being an airport security worker. I'm deemed an essential employee. So throughout the shutdown, I've been having to go to work every day. And it just becomes even more difficult as the days go by to get up and put on my uniform and do a full day's work and come back home still with no pay. I just became a full-time employee at the end of November. So I had just been trying to get back on my feet, and then a month later the government shuts down, so I don't have any savings to fall back on. It's hard. I live at home with my mom. It's just the two of us. My mom is a brain tumor survivor, and she unfortunately was left with epilepsy and glaucoma, making it very difficult for her to secure work. So I'm the sole provider for my household. I hope that 3 weeks is enough time to process all of the back pay for the furloughed employees, but I honestly don't know.
Michelle Bell talking to us a little earlier. Let's just show you some pictures coming into us live from Paris, where the Yellow Vest protests have continued again. Now, many weekends in a row, those protesting initially about petrol prices, of course, but have gone on to be concerned about many wider economic issues. A huge police presence, as has now become the norm over the past few months. It looks like tear gas has been fired into those crowds of protesters. We'll, of course, keep an eye on the pictures there in Paris and update you as soon as there are any developments. The Spanish judiciary has opened an inquiry into the deaths of a 2-year-old boy whose body was found overnight, nearly 2 weeks after he fell down a borehole near Malaga in southern Spain. Miners had been drilling day and night to reach 2-year-old Julen Rosejo, who was trapped 100 metres below ground in the village of Totolan, which is near Malaga. He'd fallen down the well during a family outing on the 13th of January. While Madrid's regional representative, Alfonso Rodriguez Gomez de Celis, paid tribute to the round-the-clock efforts to drill a parallel hole to get to the boy. He described the moment they heard his body had been found.
We were all in an absolute respectful and resigned silence. I want to stress that our deepest sadness is of course shared by all who were involved, and I'm sure it's shared by everyone in our country, in Spain and also internationally, and we want to send our deepest condolences to his family and his parents.
Stay with us on BBC World News. Still to come. They came to the UK in hope of a future, but the father of these Senegalese twins now has to decide whether it's worth the dangers of separating them.
The shuttle Challenger exploded soon after liftoff. There were 7 astronauts on board, one of them a woman schoolteacher. All of them are believed to have been killed.
By the evening, Tahrir Square, the heart of official Cairo, was in the hands of the demonstrators. They were using the word revolution.
The earthquake singled out buildings and brought them down in seconds. Tonight, the search for any survivors has an increasing desperation about it as the hours pass.
The new government is firmly in control of the entire Republic of Uganda.
Moscow got its first taste of Western fast food as McDonald's opened their biggest restaurant in Pushkin Square. But the hundreds of Muscovites who queued up today won't find it cheap, with a Big Mac costing half the day's wages for the average Russian.
This is BBC World News, the latest headlines. Rescuers are still looking for survivors in the mud after a dam collapsed in Brazil. Almost 350 people are still missing. Britain, France, Spain and Germany have all joined the US in recognising Juan Guaido as the legitimate leader of Venezuela as he rallies his supporters onto the streets. Millions of people have marked Australia's National Day, commemorating the arrival of British settlers more than 200 years ago. However, there have been widespread protests against what's been dubbed Invasion Day. The BBC's Phil Mercer has more.
For many Australians, their National Day is a time to celebrate their modern history, with picnics, concerts and ceremonies for new citizens. This is a place that prides itself on being one of the world's most successful multicultural countries.
Mate, I think it's all of us getting together and enjoying what Australia has on offer, and wherever you're originally from or come to Australia, we're all Australian here together and we celebrate all that's good about this country.
However, Australia Day does stir debate about cultural identity and the lasting impact of British colonisation.
That's the land we're on today, and that's the land that was invaded on the 26th of January when some armed military types turned up a couple of kilometres down there and thought this land was unoccupied. And for more than 2.25 centuries, we've had governments that have failed to acknowledge the reality of that invasion and dispossession, the frontier wars and the genocides that followed that.
January the 26th is seen by many Aboriginal people as Invasion Day, that's resulted in 230 years of dispossession and poverty. Thousands of people have attended rallies across the country, calling for the date of Australia Day to be changed, or for the public holiday to be scrapped altogether.
Why would you want to celebrate this concept called Australia? It is founded on lies, founded on genocide, founded on murder. There's nothing to celebrate in that.
It's a day that massacres occurred. It's a day that, our women and children were raped and murdered at the hands of white settlers.
The Prime Minister Scott Morrison says he has no intention of changing the date of Australia Day. He has, though, suggested there could be another national holiday to recognise the country's rich and ancient Aboriginal culture. Phil Mercer, BBC News, Sydney.
Ibrahima Unde moved halfway across the world in search of doctors who could treat his 2-year-old conjoined twin daughters, Mariam and Unde. Born in Senegal, they have settled in Wales, where they're building a new life, but now their health is deteriorating. Lucy Owens reports.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
In their Cardiff flat, twin sisters Mariam and Unde play with their dad, just like any 2-year-old girls. They share a body, but their personalities are completely different. Mariam is more quiet and reserved, while Unde is extrovert and cheeky. Their father, Ibrahima, left his family and a prosperous life in Senegal to come to the UK to try to save the lives of his daughters. The girls' condition is exceptionally rare. They have 2 hearts and 2 sets of lungs. Their bodies are joined at the side, sharing a digestive system, but there is an added complication. Mariam has heart disease, leaving her reliant on her sister, whose own heart is struggling to support them both. Ibrahima has never wanted them to be separated. Mariam's condition means she wouldn't survive the operation. Ibrahima was caring for the twins alone in a Home Office hostel in London after their mother went to Senegal to care for their other child. Then, early last year, the family was moved to Cardiff. This playgroup, run by a local church, has given Ibrahima a taste of the life he hopes for his girls, together.
The security I was looking for, I found it here. The respect also. Yeah, we are definitely okay here.
Staff at Tihavan Children's Hospice in Sully have also been helping Ibrahima find solutions to care for the girls. Every practicality is a challenge, from finding a comfortable pushchair to getting clothes that fit. The girls are also under the care of doctors at the Children's Hospital for Wales. They've been working closely with Great Ormond Street Hospital in London to work out the best future for the twins. This week, Ibrahima has taken the girls back to London, but the news isn't good. Mariam's heart is getting weaker, endangering her own life and putting her sister under threat too. It's made separation an urgent question.
Mariam's condition is deteriorating, so they're considering to go through separation. At this point, is just killing one of my child for another. It's as easy as that. This is something I can't do. I can't allow myself to choose who will live, who will die now.
For now, Ibrahima has asked doctors to monitor their condition in the hope that things might stabilise or even improve. But if their health continues to deteriorate, he says he would consider separation again.
What I can do is just be beside them, whatever the situation. They will have their dad, so I'll just do what I have to do for them.
Lucy Owen, BBC News.
That's it for me for now. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Samantha TV News. Thanks for watching.